Hello and welcome to week 9 in the NFL. I'm Big Italy 42 here talking about some of my favorite plays on Fantasy Hub, as well as some great contests and things like that. So if you look in the lobby here, click on Athlete Leagues. A lot of great places to play for some prizes, help out some great charities. You've got Albert Pujols, Greg Jennings, Isaac Bruce, Kurt Warner. Lots of great ones here. $5 buy-ins for most of those there. So check those out. Help out some great charities there. Over here you can see all the money that Fantasy Hub has made for charity, so that's definitely a big-time number there. Next up, I'm going to go and tell you some of my favorite players. I use the dime here, the $10 buy-in, as an example. At quarterback, hopefully you already know this one by now. Your top play, if you're paying up, and even if you didn't know, he's the most expensive by far. Tom Brady, $8,300 against Washington at home. This team, Patriots, have a 33-point team total, roughly, depending on what book you look at. They're favored by 2 touchdowns, which is really the only negative here. Tom Brady has 22 or more fantasy points in every single game this season. 29 and 30 in his last 2. Washington 22nd in the league against the pass. And, this offense looks simply unstoppable right now. 20 touchdowns, 1 interception for Tom Brady. This should be another walk in the park. The only negative being maybe they're too good and this one gets out of hand. Some cheaper guys I'm looking at here, scrolling all the way down to $5,100 down here. Mr. Jay Cutler against the San Diego Chargers. Football Outsiders has the Chargers ranked as the 25th ranked pass defense. Jay Cutler, 15 points, 15 fantasy points in 4 consecutive games. Not a guy that goes out and posts gaudy numbers, but I do expect a little bit more reliance on the passing game this week for Jay Cutler and company, because we are going to be having a whole lot of pass attempts here with Matt Forte injured. So that's going to be an interesting scenario there for you. So I do think Alshon Jeffrey, more on him here in a few minutes. Those guys are going to hook up quite a bit. And Jeremy Langford is going to get some carries, but I still think this is going to be a pass-first attack there. Other options, Ryan Tannehill, Eli Manning, Derek Carr, other guys that I'm looking at here. Running back options here. Devontae Freeman is the most expensive player here, and he's still my favorite. This is a San Francisco team that is the 28th rush defense in the league, according to Football Outsiders. They're just a bad all-around defense here. Devontae Freeman, 130 or more yards in 6 consecutive games. Hasn't scored a touchdown in 2 weeks, but it gives you that incredibly high floor that you really need when you're paying up. And, it gives you a high ceiling as well. And this one, Vegas thinks this one is going to get out of hand eventually. Depending on where you're looking, 7 or 8 point favorites for Atlanta. So Devontae Freeman maybe just relied on to just kind of ice this one away eventually. Going to get his share of touches no matter what. So you got to love him there. D'Angelo Williams, he's facing the Raiders. And the Raiders are actually ranked 5th, according to Football Outsiders, against the run. D'Angelo Williams down here at $5,400. But they're allowing the second most receptions, have allowed the second most receptions to running backs this season. That was courtesy of Denny Carter, found that statistic. We talked about that one a little bit earlier. So definitely like D'Angelo Williams here in this one. Has a cheaper play. Of course, you got guys like Todd Gurley at $6,700. Not a great matchup for him, but he's still just too cheap for being a workhorse back there. So you absolutely have to love him. Scrolling down here for some other options for you. Ronnie Hillman at $4,400 against that Indianapolis defense that has not been very good at all. A couple other options for you there. As far as cheap guys go, I don't really want to go much down past those guys. I like Mark Ingram here quite a bit. Deion Lewis, Eddie Lacy even at $5,900. So it's going to be a fun week for running backs. I think there's going to be a lot of overlap with guys like Gurley and Freeman, but you got to like the upside of both those guys. Wide receivers, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., so close for me. I think I'm leaning Odell Beckham Jr. a little bit more than Julio Jones, mostly based on the fact that his game's likely to be more competitive. I just don't see San Francisco really competing for much in this one, which isn't to say that Julio Jones can't have a huge game. And Tampa Bay ranked 32nd in the league, according to Football Outsiders, against number 1 wide receivers. San Francisco is number 31. So both these teams awful against elite wide receivers, and both these guys should be able to feast. Only concern really being that potentially Atlanta gets this one out of hand. But, it's the Jones and Freeman show for Atlanta, so really no one else getting much production there. Other guys to consider, if you're looking for cheaper guys, I like Stevie Johnson at $3,000. Obviously, Keenan Allen, that unfortunate injury with the kidney laceration, so he's out for the season. Hopefully he'll be back and ready to go for next year. But for now, we got to get ourselves some pieces of the top volume passing attack in the NFL. And Philip Rivers is attempting more passes than anyone else this season. So You got a little logjam down here for some cheaper guys. I'm a big fan of Jarvis Landry against Buffalo. Going down here a little bit cheaper, Alan Hearns, Stephon Diggs, Eric Decker, all those guys right there in good spots. Those guys give you a nice solid floor there as well. Michael Crabtree as well, another guy who just continues to be consistent across the board. Looking at tight ends, if you're paying up, you know the drill by now. It's Rob Gronkowski against in New England against Washington. Washington ranking 22nd against tight ends this season. None of those numbers really matter with Gronkowski. If Tom Brady wants to feed Gronkowski, Gronkowski will eat, and he's your top option. But for me, I'm probably going to be playing Jordan Reed in the majority of my lineups on the opposite side of that game. This is a game, like I said, a 14-point spread. Vegas expecting New England to run away with this one. Jordan Reed, his return from injury last game, 13 targets, 11 catches, just 72 yards, but found the end zone twice. He's Kirk Cousins' favorite receiver. Got to imagine he sees a ton of looks this week as well. And then going all the way down to $3,000 down here, you got like Coby Fleener, but the guy I like even more than him, you got to keep going all the way down. I'll just save it for you here. Heath Miller, $3,000. Facing off against an Oakland team that really struggles against tight ends. When Ben Roethlisberger is under center, Heath Miller is always in play for me, as we saw last week. 10 catches for 105 yards against the Bengals. Roethlisberger didn't look right to me last week. I mean, his upside, a lot of it derived from the fact that he can scramble outside the pocket and make plays. Didn't really see that from him last week, but obviously it's going to be a process getting back to health, but that's not really going to hurt someone like Heath Miller in those short underneath passes. All right, next up, I'm going to show you how to optimize some lineups there on dailyfantasycafe.com. So we're going here to the lineup optimizer, FantasyHub there, and we're going to start typing in a couple players here. So first couple guys, I'll lock in a duo of Eli Manning and click him. Click this lineup here. Odell Beckham Jr. I'm going to go ahead and lock him in as well. And then I'm going to lock in one more guy, and that's going to be Heath Miller at tight end. And then I'm going to show you a couple features here before I generate these lineups here. Advanced options here. What you want to look at for here, GPP or cash. Obviously, cash game line is going to give you a higher floor, maybe not quite the ceiling that you would like. Other things here, excluding defenses from facing offensive players. You obviously want that. You don't want your receiver scoring a touchdown, having your defense losing points there. You could disallow quarterback, running back in the same team. I don't think that's always necessary. Guys like Devontae Freeman catch a decent amount of passes, have potential to score touchdowns. Deion Lewis with Tom Brady. So you can leave that on for the filter, but just keep that in mind. Maximum players per team in each lineup. I'll leave this on, but I'm going to change it to 2. I obviously already locked in 2 from one player there. You can lock your flex position. That's something I usually like to do. I like to be versatile with it. You can do individual player exposure. If you select this, you go down for your players here. Say you want Adrian Peterson. You click him in. Say you're making 10 lineups. You want him in 7 of them. You type in 70% right there. Stacking. You can get your stacks. Eli Odell Beckham is one that I'm playing here. Custom projections. If you have your own, you can upload those to help make some lineups. These are some models here if you want to use these as well. Other filters here. You can filter by game slate. Obviously, this is the main slate. Thursday game already happened. There's Sunday-only contests. You can do those and take out the Monday games. You can sort by team total, things of that nature as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and generate these lineups with those players that I locked in there. I'm generating 25. You can generate up to 100 at a time, and you can save them. You can save all, download all, things like that. If you want to grab a bunch, maybe take a look at all of them, decide what you like the most. Over here we got Eli Manning, Todd Gurley, Devontae Freeman, Odell Beckham Jr., Alshon Jeffrey, Heath Miller, Darren McFadden, who's cheap as well, Stevie Johnson, and the Broncos. That is a great lineup right there. I mean, you love the floor with Gurley and Freeman. You got upside with Beckham and Jeffrey, Stevie Johnson, McFadden, some nice cheap value plays there as well. So as you scroll down, you can get some other options, some other ideas of what you can get here. Demaryius Thomas thrown into this one as well. You got to like that as a nice little swerve play. Other options, you get Antonio Gates down here. So this will give you a lot of ideas, maybe some guys that you missed that were cheap, maybe some guys that you weren't on, maybe some guys that you should be. Or if you just want to make a lot of lineups and try to make your best combination out of those without having to do it manually, this will definitely help you out a lot. So thanks for hanging out with me here. Good luck this week, and I'll see you in week 10.